Welcome back to the studio, folks, and welcome to episode 4 of Project Looking Glass. If you're new here, we've been going over tips, tricks, and tutorials for various game design concepts while we design our very own dark fantasy adventure game. We've been covering a lot of topics, including player stats for a HUD system, a sprint system, and most recently, a basic combat system. In our last video, we did a two-part tutorial where we made both a light attack and a heavy charge attack, giving the player some combat options and adding some feedback for the system. Both of these videos will be linked down below if you're interested, but today we will be adding something new. In today's video, we will be introducing and adding a player interact system similar to what you can find in almost all RPG games on the market. We will be introducing blueprint interfaces, timelines, and the concept of parent and child blueprints. This should be a core mechanic in our game, so let's get into it. Alright, so the very first thing that we're going to want to do in order to create a blueprint interface, you're going to want to find a space to put it. I made a folder inside our games folder called interfaces, and I've already made a blueprint interface, but I'm going to show you how we go about making this real quick. So, in order to create one, it's just like creating an actor. You right-click on an empty space, come down to Blueprint, you come over to the third part down, it's going to be Blueprint Interface here, click on it, give it a naming convention. I usually will use BPI as a suffix for it, if I could spell, because that stands for Blueprint Interface. And then you can name it whatever you want. Usually name it something for what it's going to be used for. I named the original Interact, so I'll name this just Player real quick so I can show you how this works. Opening up the interface, you're going to be presented with this screen. This is going to be your function. You're going to want to give it a name. And the only other things that you can really do with an interface is add inputs and outputs. And this is what gets called in other blueprints. However, because the interact is just going to be a check, essentially, whether something can be interacted with, we're not going to be adding any inputs or outputs. We're just going to give it a naming convention. And I've already given one the name of player interact. So I'm going to exit out of this. Delete the player one, just because I don't need that. And we're just going to go ahead and use BPI interact. Now, in order to use these, the only thing that you're going to need to do is find whatever object or actor you are going to be interacting with or having interact with something. In the case of our player character, the player character is going to want to interact with objects. So you're going to want to go to your character blueprint, in my case, third person, open that up, and in order to implement an interface, you want to go to Class Settings, come down to Implemented Interfaces, click on the Add, and you're going to want to search for your blueprint interface. So we named ours BPI Interact, but I believe I've already got mine implemented. Yeah, I do. So we named ours BPI Interact, and I already added mine to this, but I can show you what it does real quick. Double-clicking on the interface, once it pops up over here, it will spawn an event here. This is a custom event, and this is what will happen anytime something is interacted with, and I will show you exactly how we're going to use this. We're not going to need this on the character, but you are going to want to create a new input for interacting with something. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to our PLG inputs, or whatever input system you were using. We're going to create a new input. So we're going to do input action, IA player interact. Open it, and you're going to want to give it a trigger of simply pressed. So walk up, press something, and you'll be able to interact with the object. Sometimes you'll want to use hold and release, but not in this case. We're just doing a test. So now that you have that set, save, exit. And now you're going to want to add that to your third person or first person, whichever character you're using, you're going to want to add it to the mapping context. IMC default, close all these, there we go. And you can see I've already got interact set up here. I'm going to delete that real quick and just show you how I went about adding this. So just like with adding our attack systems, we're going to add our interact. IA interact, there we go. And you're going to want to set a key for it. I'm going to key it to the keyboard E. You don't need to do anything else with this. You just need a button for it. Save and exit. There we go. And now in our character blueprint, you're going to want to add your interact function. So we're going to do, what was it? Interact. IA interact, here it is. And what we're going to do with IA interact, we're actually going to do a for loop. So when you interact with something, you're going to want to do a for loop with break. And we will show you this in a second. Off of array, you're going to want to get all overlap, or no, not all, get overlap actors. There we go. This will create an array of everything that the player is overlapping at the second using a collision field. We're going to want to set this to actor. And for the loop body, or actually for array element, we're going to come off of that and we're going to do does implement interface, does object implement interface. And we're going to want to select our BPI interact. There we go. Come off a loop body with a branch. Connect the two. And then off a branch, you're going to want to call, or actually, come back to array element, come off of array element, and call interact. There we go. Player interact. You're going to want to get this one that says message. This is the function that you made for the blueprint interface. This is the function that you originally named, and this is how we're going to be accessing the custom event that we showed earlier. Connect that, and coming out of the execution for player interact, you're going to want to go into break, because you want this to stop once you actually check and make sure that it's got the interface and you call the function. And that should be it. That is our player interact function. But we still need something to interact with. So we are going to go ahead and create a collectible item. So we're going to go to our content drawer. We're going to go to our game folder, and we're going to add a new folder called Collectables. And the reason we're making a folder is because we're going to be creating a parent actor, and we're going to be creating child actors after that have a basic implemented code, and then each one is going to do a different thing, like health orbs, weapon pickups, that kind of stuff. But you want all of them to be able to be interacted with and have the same interface on them. This is how we're going to do that. In Collectables, create a new blueprint class. Create an actor. We're going to call this, it's saved. I'm going to rename this BP underscore collectible. I think I misspelled that, but that's fine. Base. Go ahead and open it. And we're going to just create a basic shape. Let's add a cube. Add a basic cube. And we're going to want to make sure that this is above the floor. Or sitting on the floor, sorry. And for those of you curious how I have this floor set up, in this hamburger menu right here, if you click it, there's a tick that allows you to show it or get rid of it. I like using this just because it tells me exactly how it's going to look when it's sitting on a flat surface. So now that we have this, we're actually going to make this a little bit smaller. Let's do about 0.5. Set that back on the floor. There we go. We're going to add a collision field. We're going to do a sphere collision. There we go. Coming off of sphere collision, we're going to do radius, and let's make it about twice as big as this item. We can make that be 100. An even 100. There we go. Compile, save. Now as long as the player is inside this, they'll be able to interact with it, which we're going to want to add our interface. Go to class settings, implemented interfaces, interact, BPI interact. There we go. Now, being able to interact with the object is all well and good, but you want to be able to see when you're able to interact with it. So, we're going to add something called a widget component. You're going to want to get this widget, not interaction, just the top one. And the way that this works is quite nice. We could set this, I'm going to set this right at the top of the collision field. We're going to come over to space under user interface. From world, we can set that to screen. And what that's going to do is make it so that the words sit on the object and they will rotate to always face the player. We're going to go to widget class, and I've actually already created an interact widget. I can show you this right now. In widgets, I have one called interact. It's very simple. It's just a text block. And I do have a little bit of code on that. On the text block, I did do a binding. I did a get text binding. So if we go into our graph, I can show you real quick. In get text, all I did was set a public variable for interact prompt. And that's it. That's all our interact prompt is going to be. So we're going to select interact, compile, save, go into event, and we are going to, off of event begin play, we are going to create a new function. The function that we're going to create is going to give us the ability to change the wording on widget. So create a new function. We're going to do get widget reference. Drag the widget component onto the screen. Off of widget component, get user widget object. Then off of the return value, cast to the interact widget. WBP interact. There we go. Convert this to a variable. Give it a name like widget reference. There we go. Compile, save. Back in event graph, you're going to want to call get widget reference right off the bat. And now we can take our widget reference variable, come off of it, and get interact prompt. And this is a text value. Oh, we don't want to get that. We want to set that. Sorry. There we go. Connect it. And now we can set this to whatever we want. So I'm going to set this to press E to interact. Compile, save, third person, and let's drop this item onto the map. Game, where'd I go? Collectables, there we go. Drop this here, play from here. And this is what I meant about the text following you. It's very interesting to see. Now there is one issue that I'm seeing. You can see this even though we're not close to it. You only want to be able to see this if you can physically interact with the object. So we're going to fix that real quick. We already have the collision field, so we can do this real quick. Selecting your sphere collision, create an onComponentBegin overlap event. And then you're going to want to do the same for the end overlap event. Off of other actor, do an equals, off of select asset, get player pawn. I'm just going to tidy this up, put that right there. So now, as long as the player walks into the range of the collision field, they'll be able to see something. And the way that we're going to set this, get the widget, set visibility. You're going to want to set new visibility, but we also want to do this so that when you leave the collision field, it also gets rid of it. So duplicate that. Untick it. Set that to true. Take both of these. Duplicate. And we're just going to do the same thing. Connect it to the event end overlap. There we go. Now there is one more caveat here. And what we're going to want is to set whether you can see this at the beginning of the game too. I don't think you're going to want to, so we're going to take this, duplicate it, and we're going to set this at the beginning. That way it sets the widget invisible until you walk into it. Alright, now you can't see it. And the second you walk away from it, it goes away. Now we can add our interact. Delete these, and we're going to put the interact right here. Click on your interface over here for player interact, and you're going to create your custom event. Now the only thing that we really want to do here, just because this is going to be the base model, on player interact, we're just going to destroy. There we go. Compile, save. And the way that this works, now that we have our interact input set to E, if you press E, you'll be able to interact with any object that has that interface, but only as long as you're within its collision field. So I'm pressing E right now, the cube is still here. But if I walk up to it and press E, it'll destroy it. And because it's destroyed, the widget also is destroyed. And that's how you build an interactable object for a collectible system. Now you can set up whatever code you want for that to make it do different things. If you want a health pack, you can give it health to your character. If you want it to be a coin system where it gives you money, you can also set it up for that. This is just a basic one. We'll be doing other things with it later on. Now there's another thing that you can do with your interact prompt, and that's make a door. And I've already gone ahead and done so I will show it to you right now. I put mine in world objects. So BP door, set that here, and I'll show you exactly what this does. So you walk up to it, press E to open, and it will open the door. You can walk straight through. This is a similar code to the interactable object. I did the exact same thing here. Get the widget reference, interact prompt to set it to whatever you want, and then hide the widget. And then on component, I did one little caveat. I did a check to see if the door is open, because if the door is closed, you'll want to be able to see the widget when you walk up to it. But if it's already open, you don't want to see the widget saying to press E to open the door. So I did an isOpen variable, which is set to true upon opening the door over here. And if the door is open, or if the door is not open, that's a Boolean not. If the door is not open, you'll be able to see the widget pop up. Now the only difference between the interact prompt of the collectible and this one is I did add an animation sequence here. So as long as the door is not open, when you walk up to it, interact with it, it will play a timeline. Now what a timeline does, add timeline, it lets you set an event over a set amount of time. So I'm going to show you real quick. Double clicking on the timeline. You can set the length of the animation. Let's say I want to set it to 2 seconds. Add a track, add a float track. I always name these alpha. And in order to create a sequence, you're going to want to right click on the empty space, add key to curve float. And you can put as many of these on the graph as you want. I usually do 2 for doors just because you're going to want to open it or close it. There's not really an in-between for that. So I'm going to add 2 real quick. And the way this works, we have a 2-second timeline on here. So the first key you always want to set to your basic, or to your base level. So our base level is going to be close, time 0 with a value of 0. And then you're going to want the second one to be time maximum of whatever your time is, 2 in this case, with a value of 1. And you want to make sure you click off of the value or the time in order to set them. If you don't, it'll just reset to whatever it originally was. Click these 2 nodes here to zoom to fit, both horizontal and vertical. Select both of the curve floats. Right click them, and you're going to want to do an auto. This creates a nice curve graph which will open the door more smoothly so it doesn't snap open on a whim. Compile, save, and that's how you create the timeline. Now the next part of making the door opening, I just did a lerp rotator connected to our alpha, and I set the doors open to 92 degrees, or negative 92 degrees, so it swings away from the player. And once it gets to the lerp rotator, I set that as the relative rotation of a static mesh called the pivot, which on the viewport, on the object itself, is actually this little node, which is the parent object of the door. The way that you can make that the parent object, all you have to do is drag whatever the main body of the object is onto the pivot. And then once you do that, whatever happens to the pivot will happen to the door itself. It's a nice little trick I picked up. So back in our event graph, once the door is open and the relative rotation has been set, we're going to set a variable is open to true, and we're going to set the visibility of the widget to false. That way the door's open, player can walk in, out, they don't see the prompt anymore, and they can't interact with it. And that's what this turns into. Alright, so that concludes the video. So in this video we went over how to add blueprint interfaces, and we created a blueprint interaction for the player. We covered how to implement interfaces and how to check if an object you are touching can be interacted with. We also added a door, which uses timelines to open, as well as parent blueprints for a collectible object. Later on, we'll use this parent blueprint to create multiple different types of objects like health packs and weapon pickups that each do a different thing, but use the same basic design. In a future video, we'll be creating another blueprint interface for the damage system, but we'll be adding that to a component so it can be placed on multiple different objects. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date on our upcoming videos. Stay tuned for our next video, where we will be building on this interactable object system and creating a couple of power-ups for the player to pick up, including a dash and a double jump mechanic. Come check it out, and we hope to see you there. Until then, go out, make an impact.